ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com.
Oh, the greatest day in artist history on Orange Nation. Oingo Boingo's Steve Beartech is celebrating a birthday today. Did you know that? Steve Infanti? This is my favorite band. This is Stay from Oingo Boingo.
I am aware that it's your favorite band. You've brought it up a time or two.
I have multiple Oingo Boingo tattoos like a man.
I know that as well.
Thank you.
All right. Without further ado, let's. He's a busy man. It's a game day. Let's bring in SU assistant coach Gerry McNamara, brought to you every week by William Mattar. Gerry, is always great to see you. Great to hear from you. How are things going out there in Chestnut Hill?
Going well. Just getting ready for tonight's game. Obviously, exciting anytime in our league that we get a chance to play someone for the second time. And, one of the great things about playing here is we have a great alumni base and great support cast, usually in the stands down here. So we're looking forward to tonight.
All right, let's start with the NC State game if we could, and this play from J.J. Starling of late. It's raised a lot of eyebrows, caught a lot of people. I don't want to say by surprise. Again, we knew it was in him, but he's really stepped up his game these last 4 contests in particular. And Wes Durham was talking on the broadcast about all the work you've been doing with J.J. What has led to this huge step up in production from him the last couple of weeks?
Work. He's been working. We took, I think we talked about it maybe even on this show. The day after our Carolina loss, the following evening, we had the late practice, and we took that afternoon to really, really kind of just focus in on the work. And, I've been doing this long enough in terms of there's a lot to factor in when you're working with players, and, it's easy. I think it's easy for all of us to judge a performance or judge on the outside, but when you're on the inner workings and, being a player and understanding the ebbs and flows in terms of emotional state, I just felt like certain guys needed a day of music and getting back after it, and kind of like a summertime workout where there's no pressure on you. You're just in love with the day's work, and, he's just kind of had a rejuvenated focus from that day. He followed that, into the Pittsburgh game that week, played well, and for the most part since has played really well. He didn't shoot the ball well against Florida State, but no one did. And but it boils down to one simple thing, and that's just getting back, dishing all the, ditch that pressure, man. Just let it go and play free. Really good players have to play free, and he's a really good player. And the most important thing is he's a great player when his shot is at elite performance. And, that's been the big emphasis on what we've been working on, is getting his shot back to what really is, when we recruited him, he was a very, very good shooter. When I watched him score 1,000 point at Baldwinsville, he was a terrific shooter. So we're just getting his confidence back to being that guy on the regular basis.
It came up during the broadcast about his shoulder injury last year, and that he had kind of developed almost like a hitch in his shot because of the injury to compensate for it. And you've helped him kind of work through that and work out of that. Is it unusual for a player to be able to change their mechanics during a season? I feel like that's normally an off-season thing, right, or a summer thing. Is it unusual for him to have this success and work on the mechanics while you're going through a season?
It is, yeah. This has been a long-term process. We obviously knew we needed to make some adjustments, and we knew the fix, but it wasn't as easy as, it wasn't as easy as like, hey, this is what we're doing. It takes a lot of preparation and reps to break certain habits. We had, I can't even tell you how many conversations about why he felt like he was doing it. And I think initially it was because he was trying to avoid some sort of impingement in his shoulder. The biggest thing is I felt like he wasn't using his legs as much. And he was still extending his arms. So we started to do, we call it trigger work. So we started, he and I have certain terminology that we've become accustomed to using. And, I put in like 4 or 5 different drills that we've done that we call triggers. So, hey, let's work on your triggers. And that's firing his feet. And then if that's the consistent, you're firing every time. Now let's work on keeping that elbow in and not extending those arms. So yeah, it's been a long-term process in terms of where he's at right now. But I feel like he's in a good place as far as trusting the work. It was a big adjustment that he made. We changed multiple things, and for him to have kind of flipped it and shoot it relatively the same way every time for the most part right now is we were looking for the consistency in it, and it's more consistent now than it was even since obviously the summertime.
I feel like this kind of goes without saying, but I mean, how important is it, Gerry, for Judah to get some help on the offensive end from a consistent source, whether it's JJ or Chris Bell, or to have 2 or 3 guys going on the same night? It seems like when you guys have 2 or 3 guys going on the same night, you win, and if you don't, those are the games you tend to struggle in.
Yeah, and I think that's twofold too, Steve. I think if you look back for all these performances that we've played well, go back to the Pittsburgh game and look at the turnovers. Look at the NC State game the other night. Look at the turnovers. And I think we had 2 at halftime. In the games that we've really struggled, we've turned the ball over at a high rate. And the worst part about that is if it's a live ball turnover, and if we're turning the ball over, we're not getting a quality shot opportunity. So, I think there's been a common theme in these games where if we're going to be patient enough offensively to find the right shot, everybody should be involved. I think there's been certain games on the road at Duke, on the road at Carolina, an outlier because they take you out of your offense and you have to pick on matchups. But if you look at a lot of those games, we got sped up and we just didn't get in the flow of our offense, and there was 1 pass, maybe 0 passes. When we've been really patient and taking care of the basketball and valued the possession, usually it finds the right guy. And, I think that's been the steady theme for us is we have the pieces. We've seen Judah have games where he's controlled the game, hasn't necessarily scored as many points as he averages, but the flow of the offense is better. So it's important for all these guys to touch the basketball. If you look back to the first Boston College game, look at that first 6-7 minute stretch. The offense was terrific. We didn't make shots, but we got, I think in the first 6 minutes, every single player had taken a field goal attempt. So that's the type of basketball we need to play, an unselfish brand, a brand that moves side to side, where we find the open guy and we take quality looks. And then as the game progresses and it opens up, then you could start to factor in, what matchup do we like? Are we going to pick apart this guy in the pick and roll? Who do we want to use? And those things all factor in. But for the most part, if you get an entire group playing well together, it usually starts with taking care of the basketball and finding the unselfish play. And when we've been successful, we've done those things.
I'm going to kind of piggyback the 2 things
Paulie,
you talked about.
I can't hear you. I can unfortunately see you, but I can't hear you.
Paulie, what's your question, Paulie?
All right, so I just want to know with JT if you could work out his shot in the season like you did JJ's.
All right, so he wants to know if like Justin Taylor can work on his shot the same way that you're working with JJ. Is it what's going on with JT right now? Seems like he's in a little bit of a funk.
Well, he's right there with JJ. We've been. I love it about him. I love the approach that Justin Taylor brings on a daily basis. I've said it time and again. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's done defensively. We're asking him to a lot of times guard guys that are physically centers, and he's done a really good job standing them up, forcing them to take tough shots. He never misses, for the most part. Very rarely ever does he miss an assignment in the pick and roll game in terms of what our coverage is per that opponent. He's been so detail oriented. We know we can count on him in terms of knowing everything that we're trying to execute. So he's been there every day, putting in the work, trying to get back to what he knows he could be. And I think the problem with that is, and we talked about the ebbs and flows, is, if a player goes, a stretch of games where they just can't get it going, that starts to weigh on you. And then practice becomes almost irrelevant in terms of that player's mindset, because all they're thinking about is the next game of getting going. So it's my job to make sure that in between those moments that I make sure that we execute and put him in the right state of mind that it's not irrelevant. This is the work that's going to get you over the hump. And I respect him. I respect how he approaches it. He never misses a day. He shows up an hour before practice every day to get it right. And he continues to go out there and try to make an impact. And, I think it's just a matter of time before he made a 3 to start the game against Boston College the first time. He was in there that afternoon with JJ after the Carolina game and goes 2 for 4 at Pitt. One of them being a big 3 in the second half. So I'm just a believer in the work wins. And the kid works his tail off. He does it every day. He approaches it the right way. He doesn't cheat it. And I just have a great appreciation for guys like that. And, I have obviously an emotional tie to someone that wants it, someone that I've recruited and, have a great relationship with. I want it for him as badly as he does, but I got to make sure I kind of take the stress off of him. Hey, man, stop putting so much pressure on every singular shot. Just take the right ones. And I think through this stretch, he's passed up a few that we need for our offense. We need him to take a good quality shot and try to get going. And like we talked about earlier, it's good when Chris and Justin hit threes. It's good when JJ hits threes. That opens things up for Judah. It's good when Malik gets on short rolls and gets the ball and kicks out. So he's important for our team. Very important through this stretch when he struggled offensively of what he's done defensively and stabilized us in a lot of different ways. But I'm a believer that in his work is going to pay out. It's going to pay dividends.
All right, well said, Gerry. Let's look ahead to this opponent tonight. As you said, it's a team you've already seen 3 weeks ago inside the Dome, a game that you led by double digits at half, and they made a little run at you, and you were able to hang on down the stretch. What do you expect tonight in the rematch? You're probably not going to hold Quentin Post scoreless again, right? I mean, what do you expect out of this team?
I sure hope so. I sure hope we do, but he's a terrific player. I think because of what he could do at the 5, it gives you so many different coverage issues, similar to when you're playing Duke with Filipowski at the 5. That stretch 5, man, is just so they blow up an offense. So if you have really talented pieces around a stretch 5, like it gives you defensively a lot of different issues because of ball screen coverage. And, Post is such a threat because he can take you down on the low block. He can get you in pick and roll. If you send 2 to the ball, he could pop and hit the 3. But we did a good job. He missed 2 open ones or 3 open ones against us in the first matchup that he normally won't miss. He probably won't miss at home. I think he got in foul trouble early, but then when he had the low post opportunities, Malik did a really good job on him. But the thing I like watching them lately, I've always known how tough they are. But the kid McLaughlin, to me, is he's kind of taken a step. He's been a huge factor for them, and he's one of those guys that you appreciate. He's almost like Malik in terms of you don't necessarily have to run offense for him, but he's going to find his opportunities, and that's because he's incredibly active. He knows how to find the ball. He knows how to find the ball around the rim. He exploits mismatches when he has a size advantage and takes him to the block, and he's really physical. I expect a very similar matchup. I do. The first game I think we got out to a double-digit lead. They came back. They took the lead. I think it was 49-48 somewhere in that stretch, and we were able to hold on. But I really anticipate with the way they play and compete. I love this group in terms of how they compete. You watch them, they're tough every night. They played Carolina tough at home. Harris really shoots it. I love Zachary's toughness. Aleek Bay is that slashing, incredibly athletic mismatch problem. Doesn't shoot it great, but can make shots. But there's a toughness factor to them that regardless of their opponent, they're competitive. And we know that. We're prepared for that. They feel like they turned it over and played uncharacteristically against us. And, we're underdogs tonight from what I saw. So, let's roll it out and see what happens. But I anticipate a very, very similar matchup. Two old school rivals going against each other and a great environment. And, wouldn't surprise me if it comes down to the stretch like it always does.
That's where I was going next, Gerry. You mentioned that you're underdogs, and I was surprised by that. And, we've seen it a few times this year. The neutral site game against Oregon, you guys were underdogs. You were a pretty considerable underdog at Pittsburgh. You went out, you won those games. You're an underdog again tonight against a team you've beaten 11 straight times, or a program you've beaten 11 straight times. I know it's not the same exact team, but are the players aware of that? Do you guys use that as motivation and maybe have a little extra chip on your shoulder that, you feel like maybe the public isn't quite buying into you just yet?
I think certain things you obviously do. I don't necessarily know if we'll use that tonight, maybe. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I'm not sure. But obviously, as you go, there's certain things that we take note of in terms of, what might have happened in the first matchup that we know we're going to use in terms of relaying to our guys in a second matchup. We did that at Pittsburgh. Very similar to this game. Based on a lot of the comments, it was like, hey, it was more on us. They didn't really, if it wasn't what they did, it was what we did. And you like to think that as a coach every game, but we like to think that when we're really good defensively, we are disruptive. There's certain messages that we want to relay, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to your execution, what you're able to do in terms of your coverages and your game plan. And we feel like, for the most part, these guys, I've said it before, our prep days have been really, really good this year. I've been really proud of our guys in terms of their approach, like that 2-day stretch where we get a chance to work on 2 straight days of the opponent's stuff and really put in the personnel scout and, hey, this is how we're going to guard this action and this is what we expect. And they've been really detail oriented in what we've tried to provide for them, and that's what it boils down to. Can you execute on both ends? Can you stick to the game plan? When things don't go right, can you make a play? And a lot of times at high level basketball, that's what it boils down to. Can your best players and high level basketball players go out and improvise and make some plays when it matters most?
Gerry, I got one last question for you. How do you keep the net ranking noise out of even your own head? Like, I think back to your senior year, you guys are going into the Big East tournament, and everybody's guessing, hey, do they have to beat Cincinnati? Do they also have to beat UConn? But now you guys see games like BC on your schedule, and you as a coach, you got to win this game because of where the net rankings are. How do you keep that noise out, and does it affect the way you guys coach and you play?
Now I got to listen to you. I mean, it was one thing to already be seen, and now I got to hear you. It's a little bit different. I think the system, the one thing I don't like is the fact that we're not getting enough credit for the league. League's really good. This is ridiculous. The league's really good. I think Judah said it best last game. It doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure I read this quote. He said something along the lines like, it doesn't matter as long as we win. At the end of the day, that's going to take care of it. So I think the net system has its flaws, and that seems to be what everybody's focused in on right now. But at the end of the day, just like you mentioned, our team in 2006, you just got to go play and block it out and control the things you can. And the more you win, the better off you are, the better position you're going to be in. And I think our league is really good. I know people talk about the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the SEC and the Big East, and I think we're right up there. I do. I think we've gone 9-3 against Big 12 teams this year. We split the SEC challenge. The league is good. It's competitive. I think, unfortunately, you look at Florida State, and the unfortunate thing is they have some really bad non-conference losses. But if you're looking at that team right now and you don't think they're capable of winning a game or two in the NCAA tournament, I just think you're wrong. This is a good team. They just took, they've taken Carolina to the wire twice, who I think is right now in the running for a 1 seed. So the league is really good. We've got to control what we can control. You look at Boston College, and they're competitive against anybody. You look at their losses, they've lost a lot of close games. But in Judah's mindset, I think he's spot on. You just got to go out, and if you take care of what you're supposed to and you win a game, let the net system be what it is. When it's all said and done, we'll be in the position we're in, and that's what we've got to focus on.
Yeah, Paulie and I were debating that yesterday. I was saying Florida State might be the second best team in this conference right now, and if you look at the analytics, they're not in the field of 68, which just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, when you lose,
the ACC's on the outside.
When you lose to Lipscomb, and I think it was South Florida, and these schools in the non-conference, it puts you in a tough spot, and now if they're not giving us the league enough credit, puts you in an uphill battle. But they're playing as well as anybody. Duke's won 11-12. They're playing. Virginia Tech is, these teams are good. They're really good. Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me what happens on any given night. Pittsburgh goes in and wins at Duke. And I know they're down 2 starters, but you still won a game at Duke. This league is competitive. Anything can happen on any night. I know for sure every night we go into, I know the team we're playing, I have respect for because I know they're good.
Yeah, no doubt. And Boston College among that group, 7 o'clock tip tonight at Conti Forum. Gerry, best of luck tonight. Thanks so much for the time. We'll talk to you again in a couple of days.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
All right, Gerry McNamara joining us every week here on the show, brought to you by William Mattar. With that, we'll hit a timeout. Full line's open now if you want to check in at 315-437-7644. Josh Mauer, play-by-play man of Boston College, will join us at 1. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.